Hi everyone, and welcome to تحت الزيتونة, where we talk all things social innovation in Palestine. Join us each week as we honestly ask the question, what will make a real impact on the ground? You'll hear from social entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, policymakers, impact investors, teachers, mothers, taxi drivers, and more, as we dream together under the olive tree. This podcast is hosted by the BuildPalestine team, and our mission is to empower Palestinian changemakers by mobilizing supporters around the world. We're so happy you decided to join us. Hi, Lama. Wow, what a deep question. So what does being Palestinian mean to me? I'll start off by sharing that, and I was born in the US, and I didn't visit Palestine until I was 5 years old. So my first trip was visiting with my dad in his village. And the memories that I have of Palestine are just really rooted with the land and family. So to me, what being Palestinian means is this longing for home, for the land, and for being with family.
Wow. I think many of our listeners also share this meaning as you.
Yeah, I think it's something that's very common in the diaspora. I'm sure, and I'm excited to hear the different answers that, other guests on this podcast will have to that question.
Amazing. Okay, so we can now kickstart with our questions, and we're just going to explore a little bit about the history of Palestine, the story, and we thought it would be a good idea to start this podcast with, sharing our story with everyone. And yeah, this is what we're going to be doing. So tell us, Besan, what has inspired you to start BuildPalestine?
Well, story of the starting of BuildPalestine is definitely quite the story. I'll share that I moved back to Palestine in 2015, and I had graduated with a master's in economic development, worked as a management consultant in Dubai and DC, and always, again, had this longing to come back to Palestine and to do something impactful there. So I started off, my first job when I moved back was actually with an international development agency. And that was kind of like my gateway. And long story short, there was a lot of disillusionment working in the international development space and a lot of frustration. And, here I was as this Palestinian who always longed to come back and to do something here and to work here. I was also really plugging into the startup scene in Palestine, attending the Rock coffee chats and just, networking, learning with different people. And I knew that I wanted to start something. I knew that I wanted that something to leverage the diaspora and all those people around the world who really love Palestine. And from my experience, I saw that. I mean, when we were in college, I went to an Ivy League university and we spent weekends preparing for protests and writing op-eds and, and people all the diaspora and even allies all over the world who were called to the Palestinian cause, I think can relate to that, of just this overflowing desire to do something. So I wanted to start something along those lines, and I played with a couple of different ideas of what that could look like, something related to exporting products, something related to pulling in expertise from a global community. And kind of the spark happened. It was a crowdfunding workshop. And, someone was giving a workshop on crowdfunding for your startup. And in that workshop, I was just like, that's it. That's what we should do. We should start a crowdfunding platform for with this niche focus of supporting social impact projects in Palestine. And that's how we'll mobilize. So that was the story, the inspiration. That was the day that I met Dirar, one of the co-founders. I was at that workshop. I remember I looked at him. I was like, we should do this, and he was like, let's do this. And we set a date to meet up. And that was the first of many meets, many people getting involved in this journey of Build Palestine.
That is really interesting. So, as you mentioned, it started as a crowdfunding platform. Can you tell us more, like, how did this go? How did it progress over the year? And, the journey? Because I know it was difficult.
Yes, yes. So when we launched as a crowdfunding platform, initially the setup was to have a entity based in the US and an entity based in Palestine, um, to allow for those financial payments to come through. And I mean, at this time, I was working as a management consultant. I had a background experience. And I was just convinced that we had to figure out how to make this possible. Like, this is what we would specialize in. We would do this really well. We would talk to the right people to understand how do we create a financial gateway that people can feel safe in giving to grassroots projects. And the more that we dug into it, the more that the answer was that it's intentionally gray. So there's a lot of fear of donating to Palestine, because it is actually a tactic that you can get targeted for supporting, um, based on global financial rules. So I don't want to I don't want to go down too far down the legalities of that, but essentially I was convinced, hey, we can figure this out, and was willing to commit to doing that. But at the same time, wasn't getting a clear answer, sitting with people from the US consulate to lawyers who work at the US Treasury, just trying to understand, okay, like, how do we vet these organizations? And the fact is like, it became too much of vetting and less of empowering. Add to that Stripe actually went ahead on their own accord and shut down our account because they were like, hey, it's clear from your website, you don't actually operate in the US. All your operations are in Palestine. We don't work in Palestine. So this isn't going to work. So first Stripe, so we had already been pursuing that, trying to figure it out. And then Stripe kind of came in and was like, yep, can't operate anymore on our platform. And that was a really important existential moment for Build Palestine. My thinking during that time was actually, this financial piece is becoming such a burden, and it's also really opening us up to getting targeted, like other organizations have been targeted in the past. And it's not the core of what Build Palestine is about. Like, really what Build Palestine is about that mobilizing. So that was a really important decision for us to actually say, hey, we are not going to manage the money directly on our own platform. We're going to work through third parties like GoFundMe, LaunchGood, other existing crowdfunding platforms. And our role is more to, one, find these social impact projects, two, help train them, coach them on how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign, and then three, to mobilize this global audience who can then support their campaign in addition to their own audience. So that was definitely a turning point for Build Palestine. And I guess hindsight is 2020. I'm so grateful that we decided that it was more than just crowdfunding. It was really about mobilizing.
Yeah, that is very important to hear. And I think at least, like, once I joined with Palestine, I think the potential that we've seen on the ground for the ones who are trying to make real change, I think we also realized that money was not the only thing that is missing. It's also, expertise and trying to help these people validate their solutions. And this is why I think we decided to, put on more programs in Build Palestine to help these real change makers make actual impact on the ground. And we think that the money will come, eventually. But this is at least when I jumped into Build Palestine, I thought that was really, really important step that we've done.
Exactly.
Okay, amazing. So let's move on. So there is, always something special about Build Palestine when people first interact with us. When they see the logo or attend an event, they're always curious to know more. And I believe this is because of, the culture we've created at Build Palestine. So can you tell us more about it?
Sure. I want to start off by saying that the logo design was such a brilliant, pivotal moment. It was designed by Mahran Ismail, one of the co-founders of Build Palestine, and having that visual identity that captures so well what we're trying to do was so important. I think in the very early days, people took us seriously because of that visual identity. It was literally one of the most brilliant things along this journey. So your question is about like the culture that we have created at Build Palestine. I think Build Palestine was always supposed to be larger than any one individual. It was in some ways trying to capture that hope, possibility, like the feelings that something else is possible. And that was really built into the culture from day one of making sure that team members felt empowered to kind of, take ownership, take the lead on different projects, making sure that we fostered a culture of like everyone feeling safe within the organization. And I just want to emphasize, like, we definitely, like, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I think that those mistakes are just part of growing and learning.
Yeah.
Um, but like, I think what I'm most proud of is that now, 7 years later, there is this space of possibility for Palestinians around the world. And that space is just, I think, so priceless.
Top. Tell us, Besan, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think it's the space. I think it's larger than any one person. I think it's like it can't really just like be captured in the impact that we've made on the ground or like the dollars that we've crowdfunded for or the number of social entrepreneurs that we've supported. I think it's like what I'm most proud of is kind of this space for Palestinians to dream about what is possible. And I think that space is priceless.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one word that I always get from people when Palestine is inspiration.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, like usually when you say inspiration, it's like cringe.
Yeah.
But they really, when they describe it, like they really mean it. Because whenever they interact with Build or like they attend the Build Palestine Summit or any of our programs, they leave with this. Like they think that things are possible and we can do actual impact in Palestine away from all the frustration we see on the news or with anything that happens in Palestine. So this is just one thing that I capture the Palestine culture with.
Beautiful. And Lama, you're such an instrumental part of building that culture, of executing on that vision and driving that vision. So I think this is the point where we get to switch seats. And now that I've shared a bit about kind of the history and the founding story of Build Palestine, love to ask you some questions for our audience about kind of your experience driving the organization for the past 5 years and also about like what you hope for the future. So let me start with the same question you asked me. What does being Palestinian mean to you?
Okay, it's always not easy, to be honest, to be asked this question. But I think one thing that resonates with me is that, a lot of the times when internationals come to Palestine, especially if it's their first time, they always ask us this question after, they know all the challenges, they move around as a Palestinian and see all the restrictions. They ask me this, like, how do you have hope living here? And to be honest, I always laugh because I think we're the most hopeful people on earth as Palestinians. I think what does being a Palestinian mean to me is that your dream is always connected to Palestine. Like when you ask anyone about their dreams, they will tell you like, I want to tell our story to the world. I want to build schools in threatened areas. I want to preserve Palestinian heritage. And I face this a lot because I work with many change makers in Palestine. Their dreams, whatever it is always connected to Palestine and how to making Palestine a better place or doing something good for Palestine. So that is what it means to me to be a Palestinian, that wherever we go, wherever you are, you're always connected to Palestine.
So beautiful, that dreaming, that ability to dream and that connection to Palestine.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So in your own words, we talked a bit about, how Build Palestine started as a crowdfunding platform. And I mean, today it's so much more. In your own words, how would you describe what Build Palestine is today?
I always think of us at Build as more of a connector in Build Palestine, but recently I've been feeling we're more like a helper, an enabler to anyone who desires and wants to make an impact in Palestine. So I think, as I mentioned before, that a lot of people want to do something, but not everyone has the proper guidance to start their own initiatives or social enterprises or companies, organizations, or anything. And at Build Palestine, we do three things. We first inspire people to take action, and we usually do this through the Build Palestine Summit, where everyone leaves knowing the most pressing challenges in Palestine, but also they feel this motive of like, oh, I want to do something about it. I want to solve this problem. I want to contribute to this problem. So we trigger people at that stage. And then we help these people create their ideas, like turn their ideas into reality by a program we call the Build Palestine Bootcamp, which is very fun and interactive 20 hours that we help people with an interest or an idea to solve a challenge but properly. Through this journey, we use design thinking to help them create these solutions. And finally, we help the ones who invested their time and money to actually start something in Palestine, and we call them social entrepreneurs who already established something to solve a social or environmental challenge. We help them by providing them with the knowledge, resources, and also the funding that they need to prove their impact and scale their impact as well. So I think the last program is what we do at Build Palestine. We really help the ones who have a great potential to making a great impact in Palestine, to grow their impact and influence as many people as they can. So this is how I would put it at Build. Like we help people and we inspire people, we help people ideate, and we help people build social interventions. Palestine a better place.
Beautiful. To make Palestine a better place.
Yeah.
It's so aspirational, but at the same time, can be very magnetic, this idea of making Palestine a better place.
Yeah.
And with all of those programs that you mentioned, the summit, the boot camp, and the fellowship, where do you see the real impact of our work?
I see our impact when I see the impact of our fellows, like when I see Rawan Rajab from Tulkarem, who recycles glass waste. She creates interior environmental stone from glass. So she actually goes to the street with her community. They collect glass waste, and she innovated this new environmental internal stone that, you know, make usage of the glass on the ground, which basically preventing emissions created from decomposing glass in the environment, which is a very serious environmental problem. When I see Rawan working and people interacting with her project, and she's selling these stones to people and they're using them at their homes, and I see that this innovation can be exported to outside Palestine, I see impact. My favorite innovation place in the world is Gaza for me, because I think because they have very limited resources, they have the best innovations. So a couple of the stories that I love from Gaza is that Ahmed al-Hajin, he plants mushrooms. So simply he plants mushrooms, but planting mushrooms in Gaza is not as easy as we all think. It needs specific components that it was really hard to get inside Gaza. So he went to the lab, he renovated the materials needed and the process of planting mushrooms. And today he manages this farm that basically replaced Israeli mushroom from the market in Gaza. And when we worked with them, we both realized together that he's also contributing to the food security problem in Gaza, because mushrooms have many nutrients that are basic to people. And he has that impact too, that he had no idea that he has also this impact before he enters the fellowship program. So really, like, with all these stories, the impact that our fellows are making on the ground, this is what I feel that is our impact at Build Palestine. And I can tell you 100 story about this, but yeah, these are just on the top of my mind.
Awesome. And I do just want to point out and name that the reason why Ahmed, the innovation that was involved in producing mushrooms in Gaza is because of the blockade that's on Gaza, right?
Yep.
And the Israeli control of the borders, what's coming in and out, and the dual-use goods. So his innovation in designing the fertilizer, like engineering new fertilizer, given what is the limited number of items that are allowed to come in, like that was the brilliance of his innovation. I just want to name that because I think it's so important to name the role of the occupation, the blockade, as why we have to get very innovative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here in Gaza and elsewhere.
Yeah, I also want to add, Besan, that I think what is unique about Build Palestine inside Palestine, like, and I'm talking about the whole entrepreneurship support ecosystem in Palestine, is that what we have noticed is that most of our fellows who enter our program, they had no idea that they are social entrepreneurs. They were like ones who engaged with other programs in Palestine. They only worked on the business side of their projects, but these programs were not emphasizing on their also social side. So, and I recall one story, Bakr Bouzi was one of my ultimate favorite social entrepreneurs in Palestine. He's the founder of Flawless, which is a smart water management system that prevents leakages in water networks and saves water, among many other features that this platform has. And it was this program helped him to explore himself as a social entrepreneur. And he found himself in the program because he could see that he has other needs other than just if he's running a completely for-profit startup. He really cared about the impact that he's making, and that was the core of any decision that he would make in his social enterprise. And these needs really helped him identify as a social entrepreneur. And as simple as this sound, but it really has a huge impact on running a business, because when you are in a point that you have to make a decision between, something that would maximize your profit or maximize your impact, if you're a social entrepreneur, you would go with the latter. And this is really, for me, what identifies a social entrepreneur from just a normal entrepreneur. And both are just fine. But I think the impact we're doing with our work in Palestine is that we're helping people to identify as social entrepreneurs and be, aware and brave of asking of the needs they have, which are different from completely like tech solutions or for-profit startups, to support their business models, because it's a challenging environment to operate in Palestine, and normal business models for social enterprises in the world are not easy to implement in Palestine. And for that, you also need to innovate in the business model itself, and that needs help from the community around you. And identifying as a social entrepreneur help you to be, again, aware, and just to simply ask for that, because you know what you're doing and the impact you're trying to make. So yeah, I just wanted to point up this idea because I think it's crucial to what we do at Build Palestine.
Exactly. Knowing that you're a social entrepreneur and that you're making decisions beyond just the bottom line is so important. And actually, I want to go back to the question you asked me earlier, which is, what is it about Build Palestine that makes it so special? And I want to emphasize your role in it and your leadership and the type of person that you are when you show up and work with these social entrepreneurs. It's just such an important piece. And I love hearing the stories from you about, all these inspiring people on the ground. So let's end this conversation kind of like where I got to talk about the founding and you talk about kind of where we are today, with one final question, which is 10 years from now, what is your wish for Build Palestine?
10 years from now. Okay, so, I always say that the purpose of any social enterprise is not to exist anymore after a certain time. And because this means if there is no need for you as a social enterprise to exist anymore, that means that you kind of succeeded to solve this challenge. So usually you move to something else. So I'm not saying that I want Build Palestine not to exist in 10 years, but I think my wish is that we stay relevant as an organization. And how we do that is by having interventions that respond to social entrepreneurs' needs at that time. So what social entrepreneurs would need in 10 years, we want to be responding to their needs. But my wider vision is for all Palestinians to feel empowered, that they can take ownership of their lives and they have the support to do so. So, of course, I want to see thousands of lives impacted by local solutions in Palestine, and that Palestinians are improving their own lives with their own resources and their own connections.
So beautiful, and I'm so excited to see what lies ahead for us, for Build Palestine, for the wider Palestinian community, for allies around the world, and what it's going to look like as we build towards that vision. Thank you, Lama. Thank you for everything that you do for the organization. Thank you for being you. And thank you for, honestly, just thank you for your leadership. I can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you, Besan, for starting Build Palestine, and for your continued support, and for also trusting me to lead the organization. I really, really appreciate it, because, again, I feel like I'm achieving my dream every single day just by working at Build Palestine. So thank you. Welcome to the very first episode of Under the Olive Tree, تحت الزيتونة, the brand new podcast by Build Palestine. I am your host, Lama Amr, the Executive Director of Build Palestine, and I am thrilled to be sharing this journey with you. At Build Palestine, we are on a mission to empower Palestinian changemakers around the world by mobilizing our global community. It's a vision that captured my heart from the very beginning and led me to join the team as an intern back in 2016. I soon realized that I wanted to be part of this amazing organization full-time, and I am proud to say that every day I'm living my dream by working here. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with Besan Abu-Joudeh, the co-founder of Build Palestine and chairwoman of the advisory board. Together, we are going to delve into the inspiring story of Build Palestine, how it all started, what we have achieved so far, and our plans for the future. But before we get started, we would like to kick things off with a special question that will set the tone for all our future conversations. What does being Palestinian mean to you? At Under the Olive Tree, we believe the answers to this question are always unique, refreshing, and will keep us connected to our roots in Palestine. So, without further ado, Besan, we would love to hear your answer. What does being Palestinian mean to you? Thank you so much for tuning in to Under the Olive Tree today and joining us on this exciting journey. We hope that the story of BuildPalestine has inspired you as much as it has inspired us. If you are passionate about empowering Palestinian changemakers and want to learn more about how you can get involved, we would love to invite you to become a member of our vibrant community, تحت الزيتونة. As a member, you will have the opportunity to dream alongside like-minded people and help us shape the future of Palestine. So, what are you waiting for? Head over to buildpalestine.com and sign up today. Together, we can build the Palestine we all want to see. Until next time, salam.